Nithyananda, everyone. First of all, I want to thank all the people who reached out to me, all the words of encouragement from the previous video. So, with a lot of excitement, I welcome everyone to the second episode of the series Beyond Hunger. Please take time out to listen carefully, because in this video, I'm going to literally share the secret about the right relationship with food. It has taken me more than a decade to discover the secret. Through the grace of my Guru, I have understood it, not only understood, I have applied it. I know it works. So without further ado, let us jump into this exciting episode. So right from the front, I want to mention what are the questions we are going to answer today. First, if you have ever tried any kind of diet, any methodology to control your food intake, you know more than 99% of the time, diets fail. Either the diets fail us or we fail the diet. And many people, they explain it away by saying, oh, I don't have the willpower to sustain it. That seems to be a logical excuse, but it is not true. So is it because of lack of willpower that the diet is failing? Or is it that the very relationship that we have with food, the idea, the concept of food, is incorrect, is inaccurate? Let me give a simple example. When you say, I don't have willpower, if right now your best friend or your most favorite person calls you and says, oh, can you get in the car and meet me in 15 minutes? Surely, even if your body is aching, even if you have 10 other things to do, somehow, some way, you will muster up the willpower to quickly run and meet your best friend. Am I right? The same person, when tackling things like food addictions or diets, will be failing miserably. So what's going on? Please understand. We are susceptible to food addictions and we are failing at any attempts to control our food intake, not because we lack the necessary willpower. It is because we lack the right context, the right relationship that needs to happen with food is not there. This is the realization I've had after talking to many people. And let me explain precisely first, what is the relationship most people have with food? And you will understand why it is a big problem. So when I ask people, I say, if you had to express your freedom through food, how would you define that freedom? And most people answer this question by saying, the ability to eat what I want, when I want, how much ever I want. That is my freedom. And I really enjoy it. It's actually quite a common expression, especially when we are frustrated or under stress or not feeling comfortable with where our life is headed. You will see food becoming a freedom of expression for a lot of people. This is one of the main reasons why society celebrates social gatherings. Whenever people meet for conferences, weddings, any kind of social interaction, we must have food. And what ends up happening is that all of us, we spoil each other with variety of foods. We encourage each other to overeat, end up spoiling our collective health, and then we celebrate all this as freedom. Is that freedom? Let us delve deeper into why food has suddenly become, I shouldn't say suddenly, why food has generally become an expression of freedom for majority of the people around the world. So many people, say probably in billions, they abuse the food and eat way more than the body actually needs. So what's going on? See, modern society, majority of the world is democratic. So when I say democratic, I mean democracies. People elect their leaders. People feel a sense of freedom. But is there really freedom in your life? Let me ask you, from the moment you wake up in the morning, do you have freedom? Can you truly express yourself completely in front of your parents, your spouse, your boss, your children? Not really. If you are saying I'm fully able to express myself in front of my spouse, consider yourself 1 in a billion. Actually, even our own body and mind doesn't listen to us. They don't listen to us many times. So what freedom do we have really? How many times we want to say something or express something, but we simply decide not to because we are aware that our counterpart can actually say no. And we don't want to hear that no. So we just don't express. Now, let me ask, what is the one thing, one experience in your day which does not say no to you? It is the food in your plate. Think about it. Your spouse, your boss, your children, your family, your friends, everybody can say no, but the food in your plate cannot say no. Actually, it does not have the capacity to say no. You can keep eating way past your hunger, but the food in your plate will not say no to you. One exception is if you are eating alive animals. Please stop doing that. Let me not go there. So because the food in your plate cannot say no to you, this is the sad reason why many people around the world end up expressing their freedom through food, through eating. You would see when you are eating something that you like, if somebody interrupts, how upset or irritated you feel. It is precisely because you feel this is my time, this is my freedom, I am going to eat, let nobody disturb me. So because we experience lack of freedom, lack of expression in so many areas of our lives, food has become one area where we feel we can completely express our freedom. And this is because the food in our plate doesn't say no to you, doesn't say no to us. Now, why is this important? Why is this thought current so important? It is important because as soon as you start expressing your freedom through unconstrained food habits, eating habits, any attempt you make to control your food habits can only be perceived by you as a punishment. Please understand this. If you think you are expressing your freedom through food, then any diet, any self-control will only be perceived as a self-punishment. So when you start a diet believing that you are punishing yourself, is it any surprise that you are not able to pull through? Ultimately, if you believe you are punishing yourself, how many days you can go with it? This is the main reason why more than 99% of the diets or people attempting some kind of food control fail. Because we start with the notion, we have a wrong relationship with food. We think food is my expression of freedom, which means that any control on that expression of freedom will only be perceived by you as a punishment. So now we understand why most diets fail. Let me challenge the first assumption itself. Let us now correct the relationship with food. We may have the wrong relationship we may have had for decades, but this one understanding can change our relationship with food permanently. So let me use a little bit of logic, mathematics. So every time we overeat, we feel we are expressing our freedom. Am I right? So every time overeating is essentially a small positive experience for us. That is how we perceive this thing. Let us say every time we overeat, we feel we are expressing our freedom. Let us say that experience is a +1 unit of joy. And now let's say you've been overeating for a long time. Let's say you overeat for 30 days. Then during this time frame of 30 days, all these small positives, see, every day we are saying, I am overeating, that is my freedom, I'm enjoying it. So +1 for 30 days means +30. Am I right? Simple logic. The problem is, at the end of 30 days, we realize we are overweight, our health is suffering, we are less alert in our day-to-day life, and all other kinds of problems related to weight, lack of activity, etc. So suddenly, in the long term, we realize that actually, if you look at the cumulative effect of all those small positive freedoms, that total should have been +30, but instead it's -300. So what's going on? Where is the flaw? How can the sum of small positive experiences of freedom through overeating add up to be such a huge negative in the long term? The math just doesn't add up. Here's the flaw in this logic. The freedom that we are perceiving, assuming, imagining in every overeating instance in our life is actually not a +1. It is actually a -10. Only if it is a -10, then only for 30 days it will add up to minus 300, which is the reality that we experience in our life. Which means the expression of freedom through overeating is a delusion. There is no freedom. We are only deluding ourselves in thinking that we are somehow experiencing freedom through overeating. Which also means the other example I used, because the food in your plate does not have the capacity to say no, we just assume it as yes. The food in our plate does not say no. It does not mean it is saying yes to us. So let us understand this completely once and for all. There is no freedom in overeating. Every time you overeat, remind yourself it is a minus 10, not a plus 1. The problem also, let's say the next level problem, let's say you overeat 3-4 times under the delusion that, oh, what freedom. The next level problem is that our minds are very prone to habits, which means that if we say consciously yes to an experience a few times, after a few times, that experience becomes an automatic yes. It doesn't even require our conscious decision. An example of this is driving. If you drive along a particular path for the first time, for the first 3-4 times, you would have to consciously take all the decisions. Left turn, right turn, red light, etc. After 3-4 times, you will see automatically your mind is engaged. Without your conscious attention, you will be turning. You will be stopping at red lights. Everything will be happening without your conscious yes. This is how all habits form inside our minds. So 3 or 4 times, if you just say yes to overeating because you think expression of freedom, what an expression of freedom. I can imagine Indian weddings. Maybe it is for weddings throughout the world, but especially Indian weddings. So much food. Nobody saying no. Not even the food is not saying no. The people also around you will be saying, yes, hey, did you eat this? Did you eat that? Hey, you didn't get that? You should try that also. And all this while celebrating all this as freedom, enjoyment. Coming back to the point. So please understand, if you say yes consciously to overeating a few times, it will become an automatic yes. And now we have formed a habit. So we started with the wrong assumption, delusion, that food is an expression of freedom. And then now we have made it concrete in our mind by consciously saying yes to it a few times. Now the good part. How do we reverse the process? See, once we understand how we got into trouble, we can reverse engineer and understand how to get out of trouble also. Now we know that mind is an instrument on which everything leaves an impression. So your few conscious yeses became an unconscious yes to overeating, which also means a few conscious no's will also become an automatic no through repetition. This is how we can change from bad habits to good habits. 3 or 4 times, if you consciously say no to overeating, then that no will also become automatic. Then not every time you will have to struggle with yourself to say, no, I should not overeat. And to motivate yourself to say no those 3-4 times, simply you have to remind yourself of the flaw of the logic. Small positive freedoms that I am perceiving don't add up to positive in the long run. It means every time I'm overeating, I am disturbing myself. I am hurting myself. This is the truth. Just remembering this truth will invoke the willpower needed to consciously say no a few times before that no to overeating becomes automatic. So if I have to sum up this session in 3 bullet points that all of us can take away, simply I would say, first thing, food and uncontrolled food habits are not an expression of freedom. If you are in that trap, get out as soon as possible. Second, the food on your plate does not say no to you. That does not mean it is saying yes to you. And the responsibility of saying no is on us, not on the food, not on the people around us. Third, if we are feeling lack of freedom in other areas of our life, instead of seeking that freedom wrongfully through food, let us find other ways to express that freedom. Let me expand on this a little bit. From my personal experience, I can share with everyone. True freedom is experienced when you are doing something creative, not driven by greed or fear. If you see an agitated child and you give them a coloring book or piece of paper to draw something, you will feel how easily their mood will shift. Unfortunately, we are continuously driven by either greed, let me become good at something, or fear, let me do this to avoid punishment. No. Pick an activity in life which does not drive you by greed or fear, but by pure creativity, creating something without an agenda. If you find such activity, you will see that activity will become a pure source of freedom of your expression. More on this later. Let me end this episode. Again, pranams to my Guru, who is the source of intelligence and who is the one who has awakened this intelligence in these words. I wish all of you great success in developing the right relationship with food and overcoming all food addictions. Thank you. Nithyananda.